Hello, everyone, and please welcome our next panelist. Today, we got a lot of questions about the games education. It's been asked, probably the most asked question that we saw. And yeah, I give the floor to you now.
Thank you, Alex, so much. And it's a huge pleasure to be here and host this panel on career boosting via games education. So, hi everyone, my name is Natasha Skult. I am founder and CEO of a company called MiTale here in Finland, but also I'm a teacher at University of Turku of game design and game art, and generally very passionate about education and gamification and all that. So I am really excited to have this discussion with our panelists here. So let's go with a short round of introductions. So who would like to start? Ida, maybe you?
Okay, yeah, so I'm Ida Westerlund, and I am the educational lead of the Game Assemblies School in Stockholm. So we are a vocational school, and we educate game programmers, game artists, and level designers.
Thank you so much. William, would you like to go next?
Yes, I'm like Ida. I'm the head of Future Games, which is again a vocational school. We operate on a number of different locations in Stockholm, Karlstad, Boden, Skellefteå, and Nordreisa in Norway, as well as in Dunedin in New Zealand. And we teach across a number of different areas: art, design, programming, QA. Games marketing, virtual VR and AR, blah blah blah, lots more.
Fantastic. And Teemu.
Hi, I'm Teemu. I'm from Xamk, University of Applied Sciences, the Kotka campus. So we teach game programming here in Kotka, a 4-year program. We're about to start game technology, also a kind of technology program here in Kotka, and we also teach game design in our Kouvola campus. So that's basically us.
Fantastic. And I just want to add real quickly, in case we have any of our Malmö students listening in on this panel, the Game Assembly also have a school in Malmö, and there we also have game animation and technical artists.
Great. So yeah, and this is, as Oleg already said, there's a lot of interest of, is it even needed degree to in game education per se to get a job in the industry? And straight away,
no.
Exactly. No, it really doesn't. I mean, I don't think that any of us, even in this call, have official education per se from the games programs ourselves, as also age-wise, to be honest, because these are the new things that we have at universities across the globe. But yeah, the whole point is that we have the games as, industry itself is really all about diverse skill set, diverse know-how and expertise, because we are creating experiences. So based on that, as we are here at educational panel starting, like, you don't need okay, like you don't need any kind of game certificate, kind of education side of things. But the thing is, it does, obviously, it helps enormously to be part of the educational programs and systems. So can you please give more like this sort of your thoughts on this, as kind of like it's a paradoxal in a way, but at the same time it actually makes so much sense once you once you go deeper into it. So Teemu, maybe you would like
yeah. So as you said, the games industry is a rather young field of industry. So in that sense, the game education programs haven't been around for that long. So we started our programs about a bit over 10 years ago, and we started like dabbling a bit with these game programming modules and courses. So the education hasn't really been around for that long, if you don't count like the United States, where there's probably been something since the 80s in video games. But yeah, it's a really young industry. I just read a NeoGames report about the kind of how people from universities and schools get their first jobs in games, and I was really positively surprised, because more than 50% actually get a job right after they graduate from these schools, and in games. So that was a really positive surprise for me. back when I read it. So it really helps to have this sort of degree. But obviously, you don't necessarily need it. There are plenty of jobs that you can apply to, even if you don't have a specific games degree.
Yeah, or be part of the programs, because there are those internships and different kind of networking opportunities in these programs that actually get you to the place where you meet potential employer. Ida, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, because it is so much of a paradox. Like, we're saying, no, you don't need a degree, but at the same time, it's incredibly useful to go to a game education, right? There aren't that many jobs where they will be like, oh, you need a degree in this in order to apply. But in the game industry, it's all about your craft, your trade, how good you are at what you're doing. And that is when a game education can be very, very useful, because then you will get several years to own your trade and train in it, work with others that are passionate just like you. And also, speaking for my own school that I work at the end, they also do an internship that helps with the network and such. So even if it's not necessary to have a degree to get a job in the games industry, I have a friend of mine who was the one who created the Game of Thrones mod for Crusader Kings. And so he was hired at 18 years old as a programmer. So you can do it that way too. But to go to school, to a game education school, and really practice and learning the different things that are good to know in the industry is also very good, even if it's not maybe necessary.
And to add to that, or just for the sake of kind of, because actual gaining the know-how, skill set, and generally and the learning. Welcome back, William. Came with the boom. What I was saying is that even that education, kind of like the programs provide a certain way, but the truth is, we developers in the industry, it's just you keep developing your skills, you keep learning continuously, because tech changes, everything evolves so fast. You have to keep up with the softwares and everything else as you go. So it's not just the degree that, like back in the day, I get this degree and I do this job for the next 50 years. No, and then retire. That doesn't exist anymore in this global setup.
Jump in here, and I think Ida and I have the same. We have the same demands on us from the Swedish government, which is that 80% of our students have to find a relevant employment 6 months after graduation. That's what we have to provide, unlike a university. And I'm sure Ida probably has the same kind of level of statistics. I take the class that graduated in August this year. Every single one of the game designers had found an employment prior to graduation. The same thing was true for our programmers and our game artists. The only student who didn't find employment was because she was pregnant. So, I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it pretty much is a guarantee right now. There's such a demand in the industry for people who can actually do stuff. The main difference is that schools like TGA or Future Games, it's highly practical education. You make games. That's what you do. You come and you learn the practical skills to actually immediately start in the industry. The difficulty that I think all of us are facing right now, as the industry matures, there's a higher level of specialization in the skill sets that the industry is demanding from our students. We have traditionally offered a more general education. You come out with the capacity to make a game, working in a group with programmers, designers, and everybody else. But we're noticing as the game industry matures, there's a greater need for specific skills. And obviously, TGA or us, we are developing our educations parallel to those developments. So I think we're going to see changes in the next 5 years about the specificity of the kinds of educations that we're offering. Before, we might have someone called a game artist. That might have worked 5 years ago. Increasingly, I think we're going to see it's going to have a more particular kind of thing. Same thing for programmers, same thing for designers. Would you agree, Ida? That seems to be where we're heading.
I think that's where we're heading. And it's also, I mean, which is so fun with what we're doing is that we can continuously throughout the program change our curriculums. We can sort of all the time adapt to the industry. We're staying on top of the game, and we have people from the industry letting us know, oh, by the way, this is how you should adjust your education right now in order to meet the demands of the industry.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah.
I definitely see, and
That's
also what we're doing all the time, trying to maybe start off broad, but then it's also about finding the students' passions and sort of specializing what they find interesting.
Yeah, that's really important. I was just about to say when we started this discussion that like the first thing that that the students learn actually when they come into our program is that how little they actually know about what the games industry is and what you need to know. I mean, all the networks and like working in a team and project management and things like that, and the business models and all sorts of things. And it was funny when I was reading this NeoGames report back in the day that all these things actually are also said in that report, that the companies actually say that people coming to work for them actually don't know these business related things that well, and all other things as well, like networking and how to kind of present yourself in these events that we have at the industry. So yeah, really a lot of stuff.
Just to add to this, so for international viewers and audience, NeoGames is a Finnish industry hub, and you can check all of this at their website at neogames.fi. So please feel free to check. It's all there on the website. And networking, you exactly put, this is crucial thing that should start as early as possible. And this is not just necessarily networking as a, I mean, there's a lot of different sound to what networking really is, because there is this business networking and there's this and that. But basically, the networking for young developers and students. Do you have any, I know I have a lot to say about this, but I will keep quiet this time. So any thoughts on this role of networking, and also, of course, any tips necessarily where to even start from?
I mean, one thing we're talking a lot about at the game assembly is that, I mean, in your class, those are your future colleagues. And you always have to remember your classmates are the ones you're going to work with in the industry. So that's, I mean, the first step of networking, right? But then also sort of naturally you start building your own network as you go out on your internship, and you have your supervisor that will be sort of your mentor during your internship. And then you will meet colleagues on at your internship and such. So yeah, there are a lot of ways that if you go to a games education, if you go to a game development school, you will naturally get a good help into start building your network of people in the industry.
I would just follow up exactly the same point. I mean, you know, the contacts the students make while they're studying are the future of the games industry. I mean, future games is around about 11% of the total Swedish games industry today. That means, and I think TGA probably would have something similar. I don't know if it's quite, we've been around a little bit longer. We've been around for almost 25 years. So there's a few more people in the industry perhaps, but basically our alumni, our connections with our former students creates an incredible network across almost every single major company in Sweden and outside. For future games, we have something like 600 teachers who come in every single year from the games industry, which means that when you, as a student, you meet people, you're going to meet people from virtually every major. You're going to meet international people as well. So it's the net through the teachers you meet, the mentors, the internships, all those things are absolutely essential. And we teach classes in developing your developing your network. It's part of the education. It's not something we see as being an add-on. It's actually we teach that on the very first day when the students arrive. That's one of the first things we jump in on. How do you get your networking to function?
Yeah. We actually start with the same thing, that we have this sort of introduction to the kind of game industry course right from the get-go. and these events and networking and the business is kind of a weekly theme for us, and we really like highlight the importance of using those connections and making those connections. One thing that we've also been doing is taking our students to these game industry events. So there's this Pocket Gamer Helsinki that we've been going for the past, I don't know, 5 years or so. We always take the first year students to that event. Obviously, during COVID times, we've been there online, but nevertheless, this is really important for like our sort of themes here at Xamk. Another thing is that I'd like to kind of bring into the discussion is the kind of portfolio and project work. So that's another thing that we really focus on. We have about 6 months worth of game projects that the students do during their studies. So that really helps them to kind of build their portfolio and like get their work seen for the possible employers.
And I would just like to add that networking and community as such, yes, through the educational programs definitely are there to open up the doors to where and how and what, but also game developers and student groups and so on. I mean, there are communities within themselves that, so for example, I don't know how many of audience is aware of, but for example, there is IGDA, which is International Game Developers Association, that has 150 chapters and special interest groups around the world. Here in Finland, for example, we have IGDA Finland, in Sweden, IGDA Sweden, and so on. So this is volunteer-based events that are organized for people just to get together and just, you know, get to meet each other. So it's not recruitment kind of events or anything, but just literally sharing your stories, sharing your challenges, like asking people around, because this is something that is really, really important. I would like to say, at least from what we see with our students as well, how much of this also more casual networking, in a sense of finding your really people to share the knowledge and information, and also meeting also others, potentially maybe your employer or co-founder if you decide to go to the entrepreneurship itself. So there are lots of different ways. Also game jams. I would like to also say that game jams are an incredible place for learning, for networking, for all sorts of kind of like both social and kind of self-growth, and also experimenting, because this is the place where you don't have to necessarily do what you specialize, but you can try some other things that, for example, programmer can just decide to do music at this particular game jam and so on. So I would highly recommend to check the game jams to participate as part of school programs or part of events that are globally organized. Like Global Game Jam is coming, for example, at the end of January. So yeah, and I'm sure that maybe, do you want to add anything on this type of more casual networking type of events? Does anyone have any thoughts?
Well, I'll just say, I mean, there are obviously three main things to do. One is, as you say, events, whether it's game conferences and those kind of things. That's one thing. One is directly, as you say, into organizations, not just even it's IGDA, but it's also Women in Games and lots of other groups. You know, they're all really important to be able to get your network. And then I think that I mean, there's also the aspect that you kind of need to we have, for example, a student union, which is very active. They organize lots of their own events. That's another access. And to use the alumni of the organizations, that is a key way to have those contacts into the games industry. So I think those are the kind of three areas that we would kind of look at mostly.
This is a very good place to also ask the rest of you for any final giveaways, because I think it's soon going to be time to also take some questions as they are lining up. There's a lot of questions coming. So in order to also be able to answer these, any tips and kind of giveaways at this stage for our audience? Maybe from you, Ida, or Teemu?
I would say one thing that I think is very important, and it's on one hand, you know, the whole we need to specialize more, etc., that William mentioned, but then also the game industry is growing. It's not a young industry anymore. It's growing. There are more and more people who are game developers, and it's more and more about working together, being able to work in different group constellations, being able to make games together. And I feel that is incredibly important, and also something worth remembering, that it's not maybe just about being the best artist the world has ever seen. It's also about being able to work as an artist with other people.
So in other words, focus on soft skills as well as it comes to developing soft skills.
And sort of it's a diverse industry. There's tons of people in the industry, different people from all walks of life. It should be like a safe place for every game developer to work in. So I think that's also a really, really like a high value that we have in our industry.
And we as schools can also help nurturing that and making sure we send out people into the industry, and we can help giving them all chances to make the industry a better place for everyone.
I'll just throw in a couple of other perhaps useful things. Is for international students. I mean, at Future Games we currently have 45 international students who started this year. We also offer a merit scholarship for those students who are applying for abroad, so they can study for free, but it's a competitive situation. And that one of the things that we now do is that every game project we do is now released either through itch.io or on Steam. So when the network they can create is not just through is not just to show in a portfolio. The games that they actually are making are actually played and published. So they have another kind of network as well. I think that's an essential part. They should be testing what they're doing in games development in the real world with real players. So that's another additional kind of way in which the networking side of this can work.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah,
and the games as experiences, I mean, they do require not just diverse skill set, but diverse mindsets and the ways of thinking and the ways of creating different diverse experiences. So therefore there is a lot of opportunity there, but we are definitely working on more diversifying our industry, as it definitely needs, just same like any other industry, it needs more diversity itself as such. So Oleg, would you like to go through the questions for us, or should I
Yes. First of all, are there any courses online? I mean, is it possible to participate in Finland or in Sweden if you're from abroad and just do the whole education online?
At least in Xamk, there's this really huge online game development course. You can actually do it for free online, and there has been like 2,500 students going through that course. It's actually been done in collaboration with Cambridge. So yeah, that's at least one step you can take. The kind of range, how much you do that depends on you. So you can do like 5 credits up to I think 15 or 20 credits. Not sure, but something like that.
From our perspective, it's slightly different. I think we probably have the same restrictions. The educations that we run, there's a requirement from the Swedish government for those students who are Swedish that it's an on-site education, so we're not able to offer them all online. For our international students, it's a totally different situation. So right now we offer a hybrid situation. And obviously, post-COVID, I think we're reassessing actually how we're going to offer the courses in the future. But we actually have requirements about the students. The one thing I can say is that for those students who study, particularly in Boden, Skellefteå, where we have schools, the accommodation, things like that are extremely cheap. So they can actually study, and the pricing for those educations is a third of what you would pay if you were studying in Germany or France or Britain or the USA. So it's a very cost-effective way to do it. But we encourage on-site education simply because we know that in game projects, it's so much better to work with people in the same room, to be quite honest. If you're working on a 10-week game project, everybody had to do it during COVID, but quite frankly,
it works. You have experience enough. let's put it that way, that you can actually so experience with enough experience, then
Sure.
Eva, did you have something to add?
I'm just, as already been mentioned, we're an on-location school, and we also see that it goes better if you're there on location. You can sit in the same room working with others. So unfortunately, it's not possible to take part of our usual programs from abroad, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and our programs are also on site, obviously hybrid during the COVID times, but yeah, on site. These that give you a degree.
Yeah, we do have a shorter education coming up that's going to be fully digital, but for that one you have to be already employed in the industry, so it doesn't really apply to this panel, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Oleg, do you have any other?
Have a lot.
I know.
Let's
just go. Can we go to the next better? Maybe to
Will it be a cool thing or a bad thing if a person is fully self-taught and have a good portfolio and shows a good skills?
I think that's a good thing. Like regarding employment, like if you have the skills and you can show it in your portfolio, by all means, go and apply directly to those jobs.
I would only add one little rider there, and I think Ida already hinted at it, is that the games industry works through teamwork, and skills in actually working on using Agile or Scrum or Kanban or whatever, knowing how you actually work professionally in the industry with other people, working with Perforce, working with other tools that we use in the industry is essential if you're going to be employed. It's increasing a demand from the games companies that people know how to do this. It's an essential part of all our education in future games. I'm sure it's the same for TGA.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we teach the student how to work with Scrum boards and working in Perforce, etc. So you don't have to necessarily know it beforehand, but to know sort of how the industry works is obviously helpful. We do have students that are here right now outside this window you can't see, but I mean, we have everything from people with 2 degrees before starting here and those that are perfectly self-taught, but it's also all about the portfolio and how you work with others, right? So it can be a very cool thing to be self-taught, but it doesn't have to be, if that makes sense.
I would like to add one thing that I usually see as from the industry. Nothing to do like from the now educational kind of like teacher hat is completely off now. One thing that I have noticed with the candidates that apply to the jobs who are self-taught is that they don't have diverse enough portfolio, which schools and different programs and even yourself. So if you can force yourself as an artist, programmer, whatever you are, like to actually show variety of skill, style, whatever, depending where you are applying, because these different projects that schools kind of make you do, like it or not, because it depends where you are and what courses you take. It's like it diversifies your way of thinking and way. So one thing with the self-taught risk there is not that the quality of work, but being a one-trick pony, instead of having really to show what wide range of things you can actually do. So I would say for all self-taught persons out there, and regardless of what it is, technical or art stuff, go for it. But please make sure that you then challenge yourself, get yourself out of the comfort zone, because that's what industry is all about. We challenge ourselves all the time. So diversify your portfolio to show what skill set you can actually.
I would just take that a little bit further. There's a tendency for some certain students when they first start in education to think what they want to make in games are the kind of games they like to play themselves. We don't teach people to make the games they like to play. We teach them how to make games regardless of who is actually making the games. So it's not about, if you're interested in developing your own game, you should take an indie course, an indie developer course like we offer. But if a regular game course, we're teaching you to work in the industry. It's not about choosing the areas you like to play for games yourself. It's about actually being able to work with other people in teams, doing games as is necessary, set up by the companies who are actually demanding the content. So I think there's a slight moment there. Self-taught tends to push people more into the independent side of development. Those people who want to work in the larger AAAs need to understand that they're not going to be making the games that they necessarily adore. They're going to be making games that actually the companies are working on, and that's a slightly different way of thinking.
Yes. So I think we are running out of time, but Oleg, do we have time for one more?
Thank you. I think no more. Unfortunately,
No more.
next time we make sure we book more time, but I want to thank you for the...
So
yeah, it's been a lovely discussion, and we have a lot of people, a lot of questions, but with that being said, I want to thank you for being here with us